Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over a major winter storm over portions of the central United States, from portions of the northern Rockies down through the southern plains and then back up through the western Great Lakes. You all will be dealing with some snowfall out of this. In some cases, you could be dealing with 12 or more inches in parts of the plains, and even in some mountain areas, you could see maybe close to 3 feet of snowfall. We also have some big concerns with icy precipitation, where you could maybe get up to half an inch to 3/4 of an inch, maybe even an inch of ice over portions of, right now it looks like, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. Of course, that still can change. And then we'll have long lasting cold air after this event, where it'll really bring down those temperatures. You might see temperatures that are near 40 degrees below average in some areas behind this storm and because of this storm. So this is going to be a very widespread system that's going to have many different impacts, and we are going to be seeing quite a bit in the way of snowfall and also cold air. So here would be the current National Weather Service page. We have winter weather advisories in effect for portions of the northern plains, from Michigan to parts of Montana and Wyoming, as well as some winter storm warnings in effect for portions of Wisconsin into parts of central Minnesota there, and then also into parts of South Dakota and North Dakota, as well as another area for Wyoming and Montana. We also see some more winter storm watches in effect for parts of western Montana, northern Idaho, and northern Washington. We also see freeze watches in effect for portions of California, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, as well as portions from Iowa down through Texas and Oklahoma. We also see some freeze watches further west of there in Nebraska and Kansas, as well as some freeze warnings also in southern parts of Nevada there. We also see some red flag warnings in effect for portions of the southern Rockies, as well as parts of the central Rockies and parts of Texas and Oklahoma there. We also see some more red flag warnings in effect for parts of California. And other than that, there's not a lot else going on in terms of watches and warnings. Clear for the eastern third of the U.S., but for much of the rest of the country, you guys are dealing with quite a bit of a mess in terms of cold air and snowy conditions. And don't be surprised if over the next 48 hours or so you see this area of the United States could get blanketed with ice storm warnings, winter weather advisories, even some winter storm warnings, winter storm watches, and freeze warnings, as well as freeze watches and frost advisories because of this really big storm. Now, here's the current radar loop of the storm that I talked about in yesterday's video, just to give you an update on what's happening with that storm. We did see quite a bit of snowfall, especially in portions of South Dakota and southeasternmost North Dakota, as well as central Minnesota. You guys also saw quite a bit of icy precipitation just south of there over parts of Wisconsin and southern Minnesota, and even some convective activity over portions of southern Wisconsin, much of Iowa, and then back through parts of the plains, where you actually saw quite a bit of blow up in terms of thunderstorms, and some of these areas did pick up quite a bit of snowfall. And I'll just read off the top 3 snowfall reports from the storm so far. 3 miles southwest of Red Lodge, Montana, 20 inches over the past 24 hours. As well, over the past 24 hours, we saw 4 miles north of Red Lodge, Montana, where you got 14 inches of snowfall, 12 inches in Leola, South Dakota, as well as Kennel, South Dakota, and Harriet, South Dakota as well. So all those areas saw over a foot of snowfall, and there's many reports that are 6 or more inches in terms of how much snowfall they reported. So definitely this was a very big storm and widespread storm. Now, that's not the storm that we're going to be talking about in today's video. We're going to be talking about this right here. We're going to see this front, which is currently over the parts of the plains, stall out, and we're going to see this front, which is over the parts of the northwest and also parts of southwestern Canada. That's going to dip down into parts of the central Rockies and the central plains and create quite a bit of snowfall in the central plains. Now, let's play this through. So here it'd be by later on Friday night, and then as we get into early on Saturday morning, that snow is really moving into parts of the northern Rockies. Here it'd be by Saturday morning as you're waking up over the western United States and especially the northern Rockies. You're dealing with quite a bit of heavy snowfall in those areas. Pretty much all of Montana, as well as parts of the higher elevated regions in Washington and Idaho, and even parts of Wyoming, seeing some snowfall by that point. Notice where your 32-degree line is by this point. We're actually looking at at that 32-degree line, setting up over parts of the Central Plains, back through parts of the Northern Rockies, and that red line is going to be your 32-degree line. So keep track of where that is, because if you see those that snow being indicated maybe south of this 32-degree line as time goes on, then you know that you're dealing with a slushy snowfall and a heavy wet snowfall, which can actually be a lot more dangerous than, let's just say, a nice powdery snowfall. Now here would be by around lunchtime or noontime on Saturday, and we're looking at quite a bit of snowfall moving even into the northern plains by this point. And as we continue on into Sunday, you start to see this storm move through parts of the northern plains, and you start to see what kind of looks like a similar setup as to the storm that we saw just a couple hours ago, a few hours ago, and into yesterday, where you saw quite a bit of snowfall over the Dakotas and Minnesota. We might be dealing with a quite similar storm, except what's going to happen is that this part of the storm, which is further to the west, is actually going to dip further to the south. You're going to see this one move out further to the east, and you're actually going to end up seeing two different storms, but they're all kind of one big storm in the long term. Now, here to be by the 25th of October, Sunday, right around your lunchtime, your early afternoon hours, and then as we play this through, you really start to see they separate. So you're going to see widespread snowfall all the way from Utah and Nevada west, or actually eastward, into parts of Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa. So within that region, that's where you're dealing with snowfall by that point, according to the European model, and we'll also look at the GFS model. Let's play this through even further. Here would be by Monday morning as you're waking up, you're actually starting to see your first sign of ice precipitation over parts of Texas, and you're really going to see that take place over this region of the Central Plains. Now, let's play this through. Here would be by Monday afternoon, early afternoon. Here would be by your late afternoon into your evening time on Monday, and you're seeing the stalling low pressure system over parts of the Four Corners that will be moving out further to the east with time. Now, here would be by Tuesday, early in the morning, that heavy precipitation in the form of ice, rain, snow, whatever it might be, is setting up over parts of the southern plains. And then as we move forward to Tuesday early afternoon, it's really cranking over parts of the southern plains where you're dealing with quite a bit of snowfall. And then look at that 32-degree line. Basically, anywhere outside of there, you're not seeing any snowfall, which usually isn't actually typical. Usually you can see snowfall at 34 or 35 degrees. But what this is indicating to me is that higher up in the atmosphere, you're actually dealing with a fairly warm upper atmosphere, but then as it's getting to the surface, it's really cooling down, which means as you're going through the atmosphere, it's still rain, but then maybe those final couple thousand of feet, as it's trying to hit the surface, it's actually freezing. So you're getting that raindrop to come down to the surface and then freeze within contact, and that actually is how you get freezing rain to form. And then as we continue forward, you start to see some sort of some sort of low pressure system tries to form over Texas, and you actually see this reflected in many models that spins up and produces some sort of rain snow mixture. And I'm not going to talk about that too much because that's a little bit too much in terms of speculation. Now, let's start looking at what the GFS model is showing. So here would be by later on later on Friday, and then as we're getting to early Saturday, this system is really moving further to the south and to the east. Look at that pressure gradient. That's indicating strong wind within there. As you're seeing those tightly packed lines, that's indicating that you have a lot of winds, a lot of strong winds moving throughout that region, and you would most likely see some sort of blizzard type conditions. So maybe not getting to blizzard criteria, but maybe closer to there, maybe approaching lower visibility, maybe under a mile or so in some instances. And then as we get to later on Saturday, it's starting to move into the plains. You start to see this storm dip further to the south. You see that low pressure system now sitting in parts of New Mexico. The snow still dotted up for portions of the northern plains and parts of the central Rockies. But then look at that pressure gradient. Still, we have a very strong pressure gradient, and what we're seeing is actually divergence, where you're seeing these pressure gradients kind of spread out, and those lines spread out. That's indicating that you're having rapid intensification with your low pressure system. And then as we zoom out here, because of how massive the storm is becoming, where it's spanning from Wisconsin to Colorado, we're seeing more of that snowfall actually move into the western Great Lakes. Here would be by later on Sunday and getting into early on Monday, where you're actually seeing a good band of snowfall set up according to the GFS American model. And then as we continue this forward, here would be by early on Monday. Probably you woken up by this point, and you're starting to get your day going, and you're seeing snowfall set up for portions of Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, and even some icy precipitation over Kansas and Oklahoma. And then as we move this forward even more, you're starting to see this system starts to move out further to the east, and you're starting to see that secondary low pressure system over parts of the Four Corners start to kind of spin up, and we'll really have to see what happens with that. That's going to be a little bit more of a big problem if what the GFS is showing actually pans out, where you see a lot of icy precipitation through Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri. Of course, that's hypothetical, and I don't think that's going to be necessarily what happens, but some sort of system spinning up over this southern plains is definitely not impossible over the next few days. So here's the snowfall totals from these storms, and then we'll wrap up the video. We see this is going through all the way through Wednesday morning, and you're seeing we see anywhere in the grays under an inch to 2 inches of snowfall, in the blues 2 to 6 inches, 6 to 10 in the purple, and the pink that's 10 to about 20 in the lighter pink, where it's starting to fuse into some sort of light blue. That's where between 20 and 30 inches, 30 to 40 inches in the light blue, and then as you're starting to mix in to again those pinks, that's where you're getting closer to 40 to 50, maybe even more inches of snowfall, and you do see that reflected over portions of Colorado and also parts of western Montana, where you're seeing some amounts over a foot. But generally, what I want to show you guys is how far south this snow is getting. It's getting into western Texas, western Oklahoma, western or much of Kansas, actually northern Missouri. So it's getting fairly far to the south, and your good accumulating snow, where you're getting over 2 inches of snowfall, is still set up a little bit further to the north. But by this point, you're still getting snowfall into parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, so it is a little bit earlier than normal. Here to be the GFS model, and by the same time what it's showing, and we're looking at generally 6+ inches anywhere in this purple, so you are dealing with a good chunk of the central plains from Oklahoma north to about South Dakota, where over the next about 6 to 7 days you could pick up quite a bit of snowfall. Also, don't count out portions of northern New England and parts of the interior northeast to get maybe a light dusting or 2 inches or so of snowfall over the next few days. That's also associated with the system. So this is going to be a very widespread and it's widespread storm. It's going to impact a lot of people. So if you are in the path of the storm, I'm going to be answering all your comments. I normally answer all your comments, or at least heart your comment, even if you don't have a question. I usually just heart it to indicate that I've seen it and I've read it. So I do keep up with my comments, and if I don't respond to your comment within about 6 or 7 hours of you posting it, I probably missed it. So if you want to, you can just post it again, and I'll most likely look at it. So I do answer all your comments. So if you have any questions, if you're in the path of this storm, I'll give you a little detailed forecast in the comment section down below. So make sure you comment as well. Leave a like if you did enjoy, subscribe, and turning on notifications. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.